So my name is Alex Vaughn. I use they and them pronouns, and I am a RCP and a CPFS in the state of Colorado. And I created this presentation really as, of course, a response to my own life, but then also the state of the country right now, and just seeing so many connections between, recovery coaching, and because I kind of stumbled upon, I think a lot of us like kind of stumble upon truths and authenticities in our life that we're like looking for something to help us heal. And a little bit of, I'd worked in the fitness industry for over 25 years as a personal trainer and, and a group fitness instructor. And I was experiencing a lot of harassment and discrimination, and also it was always a both and of through my transition as a non-binary and trans person. And so after 15 years of working for a company, I left and was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Um, Found Sparkle Lindsay and began to train with her as a recovery coach through a program out in Grand Junction, Colorado, Loving Beyond Understanding, that was specifically intersecting recovery coaching with peer support. I'm sorry, recovery coaching with LGBTQ identity. So, so this is like uh, I I would love to hear in the chat just anything that you are hoping to get from this, and just to kind of create some conversation, because this is in the heart of all of this work. It's systems and power and social identities and lived experiences, but it's also how we're moving together. It's not a us versus them. It's interconnectedness. So if you have anything that you or definitely had questions about off the top of your head, go ahead and put those in the chat.
Alex, I got to take the slides down for 1 sec. I messed up my screen, but here we're coming back.
Oh,
It's
okay.
all right. Sorry. It's a me thing, not a you thing, I promise. Here you
All
go.
good.
There you go. I'm not gonna touch anything now. All right. You want me to move forward?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
All right. So I just want to put in a little bit of me and my journey. So uh, right there in the center is my family, my wife, my my in-laws, my parents, my wife's parents, and then our four kids, and me as a drag performer, and just this is me. Next slide. So this is my daughter Ari, and I will. A big part of my story was I navigated family court, Colorado family court, as a transgender parent to a trans child, and gaining access to her decision making rights to I'm sorry to decision making rights for her health care, against a biological father who was gatekeeping and trying to kind of create more barriers for the access for her care. So um, it was a little bit of, she came out first, and when she was 4, she told me who she was, and it was one of those very spiritual, emotional moments where, as a parent, you're kind of realizing you have to reparent yourself and also parent your children forward. So she came out. I was very much like, I can't authentically raise my children if I am not being honest with myself. Um, so I just wanted to include her in here, and she's one of my little loves. Okay, so a little bit of just participation, ground rules, and plan. Thank you, Rebecca. Um, what is said here stays here, but also what is learned here leaves here, and we're all in this together. And as I started to learn more and more about recovery coaching and like kind of like the inner workings of it, I just remember having this moment of looking at the three-legged stool and just being like, this is my entire life. Like, I was born trusting my own voice, knowing myself as a queer and trans kid, and family systems, structures around me were like, but can you not? can you just turn yourself down a little bit more? Can you not talk about queerness? Can you not be yourself? Because this is making other people uncomfortable. So a lot of my pathway was, I say, stumbling down because I was in recovery from systems that were saying you don't exist, you don't matter. And I was like, I have to believe in myself. I'm going to believe in myself. I do believe in myself, that I'm going to find community and connection. Um, okay, so another little activity of, in one word, as we think about this compassion as competence, what does compassionate care or compassionate competence mean to you in a recovery setting?
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. So, okay, keep them coming. Let's go to the next slide. So if you have ever had the pleasure of coming across the work of a Loke, they are a hilarious human being. They're a comedian. Also, they're an activist and advocate for gender nonconforming and transgender community. And I included this quote of, imagine everyone you encounter all day long is telling you that you are not real and that there's something fundamentally wrong with you. And especially right now in the country, we have a government and people in the states, even, that are saying, hey, trans people, we're so scared of you. There's something now wrong with you. Um, and that's really what systemic oppression is, this constant gaslighting that you're not real. So being constantly invalidated takes a toll. One of the things I work with mostly transgender and gender diverse people in my work, and one of the things I often say in I don't want to say like an intake or a discovery call is so they understand kind of like what recovery coaching is, especially as our field grows. I use the car metaphor, which is like, hey, you're in the driver's seat. You have your hands on the wheel. You've got all the controls in front of you. Your feet are on the gas and on the brake, and I'm sitting in the passenger seat. And I'm not going to tell you which way to go. Um, we've got our map with us, and it's like I'm pointing out things along the way, and even recognizing when the car is not even moving. Um, yeah. Um, so it helps them hold their identity because oftentimes, again, systemically, trans and non-gender conforming people, we've been told that we aren't real, that we don't matter. So it's like, oh, no, 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 invite your identity into the room. It has to be here. It absolutely affects your lived experience and who you are. Um, and now, where are we going to go? What do you need? Let's go find resources. All right, next slide. I wanted to include this, to honor the Indigenous and Two-Spirit, gender diverse people of Indigenous nations across the United States, because gender queerness, gender diversity exists all over the world, and there's many different genders. Based off of location and community, but just to acknowledge again systems of how colonization and supremacy works really, really hard to erase all of this. And so this work is it's internal. helping someone recover and be more of themselves and through substances and various addictions, but then also how the pressures of the world affect someone's identity and going back to the root of we're all connected, we're in this together, and um, there's no hierarchy of one person is better than the other based off of just who
Mm.
they are. Okay, let me get my giant water bottle here. So in the past, I've done some trainings around LGBTQ allyship, and I came across this model and I wanted to share it because to kind of inform the direction we're going. Because we're going to have some fun too. We're going to play some, not play some games, but it'll be more interactive. But this idea and this framework of the model of consciousness. So as we are in recovery, we are walking this pathway with ourselves and then also with other people. The head, heart, hands to healing, I think, is a great uh, framework. So, head just being learning terms, vocabulary, community-based facts, listening to the lived experiences of that community, and then how the functions of the systems help us unlearn the dominant conditioning. Because all of us are basically in a white supremacy conditioning world, and we're unlearning and unpacking our roots of where we've come from. And then we go from head into heart. How does this make us feel? So we're bringing in all this information about the world, about someone else, and then we bring it into here. So this creates the discernment, greater awareness, reflection, acknowledgement of I'm here and you're here. Now what do we do? Which brings us to the do, the hands. So the action part. And allyship is action. So it's what do we do with what we know and how we feel? Some of the trouble, it's very human. All of us do it where we go from head to hands. We want to know something and then we want to run with it. But we cannot, we cannot overstep or walk around, even though we do all the time. That it's this very honest, raw, messy process of I kind of see it like we're spiraling up, um, which creates these spaces of connection, sustainable repair, and recovery. So in the chat, if you would like, how have you experienced this process in your own recovery, in your work, in your personal life, anything you want to share? What are your strengths and kind of what are your challenges? You're kind of witnessing yourself in how this you've experienced this process. And we can always circle back around. I love to circle back around. Something might come up later as we're going through.
Hi, I'll speak up. Is that okay?
Yeah, yeah,
Hi, my name's
please.
Francie. Hi, I have a trans son, and I really love this head, heart, hands. And for me, what I've discovered is that, and what I also explain to him or talk to him about when he's in a lot of fear, because there's been a lot of fear, a lot, is that like we as people cannot take correct or right action or have a directed kind of thought and know where to go if we're in that space. And so my own practice and my practice with him and friends or whoever else I'm in contact with is let's find a way to calm our nervous systems down and then have like a kind of an intuitive action will come out of that and will come forward and present itself. But otherwise, like there's if I'm taking action or if he's taking action or anyone is taking action out of fear, it's often not a positive result, and it kind of propagates the stress and the anxiety. That's
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. Um, it's a great segue into the next slide, Travis. Um, so we're going to come back to the heart. Um, so as we're walking with ourselves and walking with people, the pull to, get out of the discomfort, out of away from the fear, we're really leaving on leaving behind opportunities for connection and growth and and change. And change we've learned like, oh, we're going to make these giant change, but it's really just sometimes it's these micro slivers of like it's either this or that, but then it's like, oh wait, no, there's like one other thing that I missed. So go ahead and hit the read over the lyrics of this song, and then we'll hit play on the song. And we have a road ahead of us, another hour and 45 minutes. So just ground into your body and let yourself be where you are, exactly where you are.
Give me 1 second here. Don't know if it's going to work the way I want it to. So I'm going to open it up in a separate window. Just hang tight with me here, guys.
Okay, thank you.
I want to get it right the first time as opposed to getting it wrong and having to restart. All right, so this. Thanks for bearing with me, my friends.
Thank you for your help.
I do what I can. I'm happy to help. Okay. So I have this full screen. I'm going to hit play. Everyone should be able to hear it. Just let me know if in the chat if you need it louder, quieter, anything like that.
To a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
Be like water, my friend. You shall find a way around or through it when nothing within us stays rigid. We decide the shape we're in. Empty your mind. Be shapeless, formless, like water. It can flow or it can crack. And we design the ways we give. We decide the shape we're in, the ways we give. We decide the shape we're in, the ways we give. Be like water, my friend. You shall find a way around or through it when nothing within us stays rigid. We decide the shape we're in. Empty your mind. Be shapeless.
cannot have it on a regular basis.
Right. Does anyone want to share kind of what any of the lyrics that really resonated in your body for you? You like water, my friend? Yeah. Me? Were you raising your hand?
Yeah, I couldn't find the hand raise react. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I mean, I don't know. For me personally, I'm a trans woman, kind of leaning towards gender fluid on occasion. I think that even once people kind of understand identity being like sort of a chosen the concept, a lot of folks still get stuck up on how malleable that can be. I generally prefer to identify a particular way, but like it can vary so heavily day to day. And getting people to understand and come to terms with that and address me in a way that feels comfortable can sometimes be difficult or just like not worth it because of the structures that are in place that I'm constantly dealing with. So it's uh, yeah, I don't know. It's affirming for me personally, I suppose.
Yeah. Like your truths and realities kind of hit other people, hit yourself. Um, and I have a saying that like when one person transitions, everyone transitions, but this is not just about gender. It's about all of us growing and transforming. Yeah. Thank you, Amy. Anybody else? Okay. Next slide. So through recovery coach training, like, learning a course about where, providing wellness and services and resources and support for someone. And and forgive me, I'm having a moment of, of forgetfulness. I think it was in our books listed as seven dimensions. And I think it's important that I added into the cultural dimension of someone's wellness. And so the person being in the center of this wheel. So we're kind of always holding and supporting, and how do we show up and acknowledge, even if we don't understand their experience, we're supporting it through all of these nine dimensions of their wellness, meeting them where they are in their journey. Okay, and then go to the next slide. Um, So this just being a little bit more of a accordion opening of each of these pillars. And gender diversity is, I feel, very there's a lot of talk around the physical body, affirming healthcare, surgeries, hormones, um, mental, structured support for minority stress, systemic burnout. But the experience itself, and I will only speak for myself as a trans non-binary person, but it being very emotional and spiritual, and deepening into the our culture of humanity, not just and honoring queer culture coming from Black, Brown, and Indigenous humans who lived and risked their lives and paved the way for all of us. Okay, next slide. This is a quote that I came across in the first maybe 6 months of my transition, of being like, I I need to understand what's happening to me, and what is it. So Out beyond any ideas of wrongdoing or right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. And when the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. And this put my experience of non-binariness. I mean, if I could, I would walk out on the stages and say, "Hi, I'm Alex. I'm energy stuffed into a body." And the closest labels I have to share with you are my are they them pronouns and non-binary. But it was this really like represent this quote was a representative of I am now consciously, regardless of what society and family of origin and structures are telling me, don't know yourself. I'm like, but I have to. I need to. And I want to. So I walked out beyond into this field of just openness. And like, this is amazing. Next slide. I'm also keeping up on my, okay. Um, if you are a book nerd like me, Brene Brown's Atlas of the Heart is a great resource. And she has 2 pages in here of what awe and wonder look like. And so awe being, yeah, how it looks, how it feels, and then what it does to us. And the picture of the person in at the bottom where he's like this, I remember very vividly as a kid looking at my hands and just being like, how am I here? um, and that being the awe of like, whoa, I'm alive. This is just incredible. And then the wonder was connected to the curiosity. This is how it looks. You're getting curious. You're like, how does it feel? I felt like flying. So you might hear terms like gender euphoria. And so you're just like, whoa. And then within the trans community, especially the butterfly caterpillar is a very common kind of metaphor that we talk about. And then what it does to us, for me, I got curious about where I'd been and why it took me until I was 40 to actually have enough courage and bravery to discover who I am. And honestly, it was positive pressure from my child, who was like, "Game time's up, mom." I they she calls me mom, which I'm they them mom, but she was like, "Time's up. Like you're." And sometimes in midlife we've learned it through this lens of like a midlife crisis, but I was like, this is not a crisis, this is an unraveling. Okay, and then the next slide, I had to include this next one because this is how it felt. This is how it felt to come out, to transition, um to be like, here I am. I was vulnerable, kind of naked. Please don't hurt me. If I could have worn a shirt that said, I just discovered I'm trans and non-binary, be nice to me. Um, but really, I was building my resilience, my courage, in letting down the armor, letting down the sword. Like this is actually who I am. Okay, next slide. Okay, so regardless of your gender, because again, this is not us versus them, we're all messing together. Whether you are cisgender, transgender, gender diverse, and cisgender, just for quick review and education, cisgender just meaning making room for your new feathers. Yes, cisgender just meaning your gender, how you perceive your gender, which is the inside internal experience. Cis is on the same side of. So society hands us an assignment, you know, baby's born, it's got a certain body part, and it says, okay, it's a boy, it's a girl. But as we know, millions of people across the world, and I don't love the phrase born in the wrong body. I don't believe I was born in the wrong body. I wouldn't trade this for anything. So think of a time where you felt under awe and wonder. Share in the chat or even raise your hand and come off mute and briefly share how it changed your perspective, your reality, and or your truths, what happened next, and what decisions followed? Yes, Rebecca.
I think for me, it was the moment when I walked into a church for the first time and had never been in church before, aside from, going to weddings, but walked in clean and sober and sat down. I was doing the really ugly cry with, the
Yeah.
snot and everything else, but something opened up in my heart and I started feeling like there was more out there. And it was an incredible day. I had a woman sit down next to me after everyone left and put her hand on my leg and be like, "Do you want to talk about it?" And I've never had that moment before either. Just
Mm.
kindness from someone who didn't know me in the ugliest state I could have been really at that moment.
Yeah, like but you were vulnerable. So that's strength and courage. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
I don't know who raised their hand first.
I think it's
Let's see.
Francie was next.
Okay.
Francie, then Karen. Yeah, Francie, then Karen. I think Emmy's hand was up, then down. I'm not telling you need to speak. It's okay. Sorry. Try now.
Yeah, go ahead, Francie.
I remember I went out on the beach really early one morning, maybe at like 6:30 in the morning. This is years ago. And everything was shimmering. It was like everything was just so alive and vibrant, and I was just awestruck and in wonder, and I even looked at a man. I was like, this is crazy. Are you seeing this? And he's like, this is incredible. And but shortly after, I got a health diagnosis and I went through a treatment, and it was very difficult, but I just held on to that experience, and it really just kept me in a positive frame of mind throughout that, knowing that there was something really alive and different and beautiful that I was, that was out, that was here, that it's here, that it's accessible. And some people call it universe or God or whatever it nature. But like that experience, it's still just, I can bring myself there in this moment and my whole body feels more alive.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Karen,
Stinking mute button. I can never
there
get
you
used
go.
to it. Hi. So mine wasn't like the first moment, but it was probably the most influential moment of my life. I was so when I was in active addiction myself, I was very extra, I guess is the kind way to say that. And I had burned every bridge that I ever had, and nobody wanted me in their program, in their recovery program. I was too much of a risk. And I remember just by chance getting an application for the company that I work for now. And the owner, there was no position that I work now. So it was just the owner. And I remember I had told her that I did not want to come back to Eau Claire, where I had been in active addiction, and that I wanted her to refuse my placement so I could go somewhere else and have the freedom to do so. And she sat there for 45 minutes with me while I tried to convince her that I could not recover in this area, and then ended up ultimately accepting me pretty much against my will. But now that I really I remember actually getting to the sober house, and like she was the one person that believed I had potential when no one else did. And that literally catapulted my recovery even before I knew it did. So that was like a really like spirit that I just connected with this woman on a soul level, and she saw me for the human I was inside instead of what I was on paper, which was pretty trashed at that point. So that was my experience.
Yeah, how powerful. What I'm just curious what happened next? Like what are some more amazing things that happened?
Well, I ended up going into peer support, like the little rebel that I was, and I told them that I didn't have feelings and that we're not going to do this, but I will live here. And they also gave me another little influential tidbit. They told me everyone that works there is also in long-term recovery and that there was nothing I could say that would shock them. And just having that moment of identification and common ground, I fully committed to recovery. I became their longest standing house manager after only 90 days, which was like unheard of. And then I eventually became the administration coordinator, and I now call the owner mom because it was a family dynamic and a relationship with a person that I never had that was healthy. And now I get out there. Obviously, I'm in these classes with you guys, and I want to give what she gave me to others, and so I'm following that path now.
Oh, awesome. So sounds like you're like just your world exploded in the best possible way.
Yes, for sure.
Okay. I'll check the chat some more. Go to the next slide, Travis. So speaking of kind of vulnerable moments, so I remember living there was a moment where I was living in the household with my kids and their father and laying on the floor of the home of our home office just in pieces. Had just come out, my daughter was out too. Just everything was it felt like falling apart, but now of course everything was coming together. And I remember looking up at the aspen trees in our backyard, and I just started talking to the trees. I was like, where do I go next? What do I do? And they said, and the message, the intuitive message was follow the root, and the only way out is all the way through. And the image I got right away was um, because if you know, like aspen trees, they're kind of like a weed in a sense that their roots go really deep and underground, and they out here in Colorado, they're all over the place, and they kind of they're just have very intricate interconnected root system. So that was kind of inspiration from a nature perspective of like if they can be inside this fence in my backyard, but they're talking to another aspen tree out in the mountains, um, 50 miles away from me, then I can find a way through too. So, how do you feel that our differences, and we'll get more into some labels and social identity stuff, but just from what you know so far, how do you how do our differences help contribute to our recovery and others? Emmy?
Yeah, I know for me personally, my own like transition was kind of fundamental to navigating through my own recovery. I remember kind of having this realization early on in recovery when I was meeting with a coach, that like this was a really long, slow process, and like I had to kind of uh, build a routine around myself and create like little changes that would build up over time. And when I sat down and thought about it, I was like, that was exactly what like transitioning felt like for me, right? Like it wasn't like I decided to transition and then the next day I was, a completely different person and exactly where I wanted to be. For me, it was like a slow, gradual process that involved like implementing things into my routine and experimenting and figuring out what things were affirming and felt good for me. Um, and eventually like 6 months would pass and I would look back at where I was and notice like these subtle differences that I didn't notice day to day, but like in retrospect were kind of massive. And then eventually, that would become a year and a half, 2 years. And I was like a completely changed person. And when recovery felt really difficult for me, I kind of leaned on that experience as a way to say, like, just because I don't feel like I'm in a good place today doesn't mean that I'm not like moving in the correct direction for myself. This is a gradual process. I need to trust it. And eventually I'm at a point now where I look back and I can see like these clear strides that I've made. And so like my own personal difference and my ability to navigate my gender identity is like honestly probably part of the reason that my recovery has been as successful as it has been. But yeah, that's just my experience.
Yeah. Thank you, Emmy, for your vulnerability. It's powerful. Karen?
And it was kind of said in the chat, but even from my own personal experience, like my mentor had a completely different life than I did. I was very in the streets, poor, kind of was in a really grimy situation, whereas she was a very well-off alcoholic. So both of our situations and our addiction were different in our lifestyles. And no matter how different they were, they still had the same root feelings. Like we all know what it's like to be sad. We all know what loss feels like for the most part. We all know what anger, all these things feel like. So, and I feel like when we are in crisis or having a problem, we are so close to it that we have these blinders on. We can only see certain things. Whereas if we have outsiders with differences and different perspectives and opinions, like if we're open to it and they're willing to share that with us, that can completely change the game. It changed the game for me. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Elizabeth says every puzzle piece is different, but they all come together to make a complete picture. Yeah. Different perspective, different cultures, different backgrounds allow us to open our eyes and ask curious questions. Yeah, awesome. Gaining the gift of broader perspective. Yes. So another way that we're all transitioning and growing together. Okay, let's dive. We have some activities to do and go to the next slide. Okay. And Travis, I don't know if, oh, actually you might have to
Yeah,
open it up
let me do
on
what I
the,
did before.
okay, cool.
This is all good. Again, you want to get it right the first time.
When I was in high school, my social studies teacher
Comes my share. Zoom move the share button on me and it makes me crazy.
Real quick before you hit play.
Yeah,
So
go ahead.
just to holding this perspective and this knowingness of we are living in a time where self-identification is very reactive. And so we're holding space for ourselves and with other people. And so this next part is to kind of get the conversation and the really the movement of allyship and the muscle of empathy for ourselves and with others, of how our labels initially labels were a way for me to affirm myself and honestly save my life. And over time, I mean, every day I was thinking, I'm trans, I'm non-binary, I'm trans, I'm non-binary. And it was like a part of the wonder and the awe. But then over time, it became less about me and because I needed to label myself to understand myself, and then more about uh connection. So now I don't miss an opportunity to say, my name is Alex, my pronouns are they, them. Because that is a way for me to like basically wave the flag to somebody else and be like, I'm someone that you can lean on and trust. And so those labels and identities are really necessary in our lives. Okay, hit play.
When I was in high school, my social studies teacher asked us to complete the sentence, I am. The catch was you could only use one word to describe yourself, but I have a lot of words. I'm Asian, I'm a woman, I'm a lesbian, I'm an immigrant. Even my name, 蒋梦觉, is not a single word. So, in one word, I am intersectional. What is intersectionality? An intersectional person is someone who's part of a number of marginalized groups. For example, some intersections are being gay and black, being woman and disabled, and being Chinese and lesbian, and pretty cute too. We are the kind of people who check off a lot of boxes when it comes to gender, sexuality, race, ability, class, body size. So, are white straight men intersectional with all their privilege? Yes, they can be. But the term intersectionality was coined by Kimberly Crenshaw to specifically illustrate the marginalized communities. She used it to explain the problems that immigrant women of color were facing in the 80s. She found that neither the feminist or anti-racist movements were fully helping them to solve the problems. What about LGBT activism? It also struggles to address the problems of intersectional LGBT people. Call Me By Your Name, Brokeback Mountain, More Than Family, Will and Grace feature amazing queer characters, but they're only white, cis, upper-class gay men. In contrast, Moonlight is much more intersectional. Its lead character Chiron is not only gay, but also black, poor, a survivor of domestic violence, and the prison pipeline. These many aspects of Chiron inform each other. So, should I feel guilty for watching Call Me By Your Name 5 times? No, but just remember, Moonlight is more intersectional and we need more stories like that. But even in Moonlight, where are the queer women? Enter feminism! Feminism strives for a society where women have equal rights to men. Equal rights. Intersectional feminism works to include all women, not just the least oppressed ones. Because there are so many kinds of women, we need to fight oppression from all sides and stand together, even if the oppression doesn't directly target you. Nobody is perfect, but understanding intersectionality can make us more empathetic and more equal. So, what can we do? First, actively learn about different communities. But what if I offend somebody with my questions? Well, Google doesn't judge. You can do your research at home. Hey Google, why do Asians all have such small eyes? Second, you can ask people questions, but don't make assumptions. Be polite and listen. But what if I really can't understand why on earth this Chinese lesbian immigrant is doing this video? Well, you should respect her anyway. Finally, in order to let more people learn about intersectionality, share this video and tell us what you think.
I love that video because humor is also a really important part of our recovery and our unlearning, uh, because systems and there's a difference between conflict, abuse, and oppression is systemic abuse, and it's heavy, it's emotional, it affects all of our lives every day. So I like that she just kind of gets a little silly. Okay, so which brings me to our next slide. We're going to get into some like movement exercises kind of thing here. What is gender? So here is a kind of a commonly shared wheel of how power and privilege, even though power is I'm sorry, it's emotional and psychological agility, but how social power operates. So not to get too much into um, inner workings, but in terms of, so I wanted to share this because this is, yes, yeah, Rebecca, I'll share. I wanted to make sure y'all had this because for this purposes of this 2 hour time that we have together, we're kind of just looking at one piece of this wheel, which is gender. So try to think what to hold on. Sorry, go to my other. I'll just jump to the last question. So as coaches, what happens when we assume we know someone better than we know themselves? And I've had my moments too where I'm like, oh, sorry. Someone willing to share. We should on them. Yes. Yes. That I've had this happen too. And the rupture creates this need for repair. And how do we repair assumptions? Yeah. Attachment to outcomes. Yeah. Genetic harm. Yep. We disempower them in their own discovery process. Yeah. Taking away their agency. Yeah. Okay. Let's see where we at for time. Travis, go to our next slide. So considering that wheel, examining, power and privilege, white supremacy in the context of recovery, generally the conversations is two dynamics. I found so as a person that came out publicly shared that I'm trans in my more middle part of my life, it was also a moment for me to understand um, that I'm recovering from the conditioning of white like I'm white, right? So like how my privilege and my status in society is affecting my life and me waking up to understanding all of these things happening at the same time. So, kind of how white supremacy conditioning is embedded within our recovery systems. And one of the recent things I love about what we do is that's multiple pathways. Is that we're not shooting on them, we're not telling them which way to go. Um, we're finding what works for them. And then also in recovery, that it's not just in looking at recovery from the conditioning through how the recovery principle, certain principles of 12-step frameworks to unlearn these things like racism and then increasing our awareness of our privileges and our identities. So the next slide. So I started looking at the conditioning as a drug and then also as an addiction. So um, I won't kind of like, you can read through this yourself, but I wanted to, okay, Chad, I wanted to name this because it's important that we name what's happening, what we're seeing, and what's happening in the world, and how this affects our work and our lives. Next slide. And then I just kind of distilled it down to like just some examples of that supremacist conditioning can be like there's only one right way, individualism, the right to comfort regardless of how someone else is experiencing themselves, and this perfectionism that we all have experienced of like I don't know how to do this, I can't do this, and it kind of can freeze us. And this more liberatory recovery perspective of multiple pathways, community-centered healing, mutual aid, and acknowledging that systemic factors are definitely happening, which builds our capacity for difficult conversations, honoring truth-telling of marginalized communities, and normalizing this non-linear healing, which many of us experienced this, kind of stumbling and spiraling upwards. I call it ascension. Okay. So I want to leave some time at the end for questions. But I wanted to include, because I knew I'd be sharing these slides with you, some statistics around LGBTQ individuals with substances and addiction, and kind of how socially how things show up differently for different communities. Do, 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 do. Okay. And then one more, Travis. Go to the next one. Okay. Someone I noticed earlier, someone had mentioned in the beginning about pronouns and messing up. I definitely wanted you to all to leave with some kind of actionable um, of how allyship just being a beginning part of understanding how to show up for trans and gender diverse people. That ally as an acronym. So we're acknowledging, we're listening, we're leveraging, and then we're yielding. Oh, thank you, Travis. Yeah. Yeah. I know we could spend hours like just like this is like an 8 hour training actually. Um, but so that's kind of what being an ally kind of stands for. Like when you say I'm an ally, this is what you're standing for and with. And then you're also moving within these of becoming of what that means to you on a daily basis. And then when someone was mentioning about pronouns, what do I do when I mess up? I found this acronym ACT, where you apologize once. Oh, I say once because I when I remember when I was starting to tell people about who I am, I had some really, really wonderful, well-intended people in my life and still do that were like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. They would say one pronoun and apologize over and over again. And I think what's important to understand is that when we over apologize for messing up, we're actually putting that burden back on the person that it impacted. So remember your own humanness, your own humanity in all of this, and correct yourself and then try again. I've even heard people misgender me in things and then they correct themselves later on, and I recognize that. So it's almost like you don't have to speak it. I mean, like nuance and context is really important. But if you're like act, oh shoot, I messed up, and then just do it later on, that's a wonderful, very acceptable way to kind of be an ally as well. Okay, next slide. This next one's probably my favorite. One of my mentors throughout my journey has been Dr. Leticia Nieto. She wrote Beyond Inclusion, Beyond Empowerment. This is one of our book studies through my training. And so she goes into kind of like systemically um, how how consciousness and allyship is that we're in recovery. We're really developing consciousness, awareness, reflection, helping someone become more themselves, and how the systems are impacting them. So she has these two models of target skills and the agent skills. And so as a trans person, like recognizing that as a kid around age 4, I knew. So my voice was centered. I started sharing how I was experiencing myself, and over the years, learned through the conditioning of that wasn't allowed, basically. And so it pushed me into um, Sir. Oh, bye, Nancy. Thank you. Um, Kind of pushed me back into this disempowered state of survival, and with people around me saying, "Are you sure? You don't really know yourself. You must be confused." And I was like, "I'm really not." So I love the way that she describes it's transgender, gender diverse, and cisgender, and that cisgender, again, systemically speaking, having the most um, social power, but how this kind of plays out. Um, so here's I love the description of I have a gas efficient car that I only fill up about every other day. Sometimes my husband fills it up, so it is something I really, you know what? I'm in practice makes progress here. Take a minute to read over, take a minute to read over this, and we'll go from there. How does that sound? How does this translate for you? It's probably better. Thank you. I'm excited. Does anyone feel like sharing kind of their interpretation? And again, safe space, no wrong answers, just how you're experiencing this as you right now. Um, so I use this framework a lot. I've had a couple clients come to me that are in this space of the beginning of their transition, their return back to the beginning of their recovery, so to speak, and coming in with this space of I think I'm trans. I think I'm trans. Actually, I'm trans. I don't know what to do next. And so I share the target skills model with them to positively remind them your confusion is a skill set. And um, that little bridge between the confusion and the empowerment, when we're hopping back and forth, asking ourselves good questions, treating our clients as resources, trusting that they are knowing themselves. And so I'm asking questions of how they're experiencing themselves, which is pushing them kind of through and pushing, empowering them through this bridge of like self-reflection deeper into themselves to get through the conditioning that they were told that they're not who they are. Um, does that make sense? Yeah, yeah. And then if you are a cisgender person, the power and the love that you can bring to being the ally and the advocate for someone who's trans.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Yeah,
I've never heard target and agent, those terms. That's like new vocabulary for me. Would you just briefly explain those terms?
yeah. So target being systemically, so back to the our wheel of privilege. So the identities on that very edge are like targets. Um, and the agents being more in the center And again, I recognize that this is very kind of a binary black and white kind of way to look to show it because in the amount of time, but it's kind of like at any given moment we can be a target or an agent. Um, so in the realm of anti-racism work, just looking at that outer layer of where is power living and where is it showing up and where is it needing more exposure to create balance. Um, it's how social identities are interacting with each other.
Got it. That makes sense. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can even this is a great question as I continue to I'll take a minute later on and kind of get the books how she writes it out too. But hopefully that makes sense. Um yeah, because yeah. Okay. Right.
Should I keep it moving here, Alex? What do you think?
Yeah.
Okay. Following your lead, my friend.
All right, next one. All right. When one person transitions, everyone transitions. So through recovery, we're discovering ourselves. Long-term recovery, it never ends. We can never give up on ourselves or on other people. And this is in the heart I found as treating people as resources. So our compassion being competence, it's the both and. It's the truth and the reality. And so hold your hands out in front of you. And in one hand, you have your infinite truths, all these things that you know about yourself. And probably over time, some of the truths that you found about yourself have shifted. Um, I thought I was this, and now I'm this. And and then on the other hand, you have your realities. How are you experiencing yourself? How are you experiencing the world? And the work being getting away from an us versus them. You have to understand my truth. You have to understand my reality, um, which is incredibly difficult because we are creating this balance with each other. So I love the image as you keep holding your truths and your realities that we're coming into spaces saying, hey, I want you to hold your truths and your realities as well. We're going to sit down at this table together and we are all in this together, shoulder to shoulder, whatever image kind of comes up for you. But I imagine we're shoulder to shoulder, we're holding our truths and our realities and allowing it to connect us even further. And I'm laughing at myself because I realized that at the end I didn't finish part of the sentence on the as humans we tend to hold truth and drop reality. I didn't finish the sentence. So what I was going to write on there is that we tend to and systemically we're told drop a reality and hold truth or drop truth and hold reality. And then what happens in spaces when we are asking people to not share who they are? Next slide. Oh, Emmy.
Yeah, I was wondering if I could just share a conversation I had recently with a coworker about an
Yeah.
experience that they had. I like this idea of like when one person transitions, like the folks around them do as well. And it's just making me think about how I had a conversation recently with somebody where they were talking about a time when they were working with somebody who used neo pronouns. I think it was like Fay Fair. And they got caught up in this idea that that would be like a very difficult thing for them to adjust to. And so in order to accommodate this individual, what they decided to do was just use either they, them pronouns or refer to the person with their name directly. And I kind of had to have like a conversation with them about how, like, I understand that from your perspective, it feels like that's a means of accommodating their like perception of themselves or whatever. But like you're inadvertently still sort of erasing that identity for them by doing what feels more comfortable for yourself in that process. And even though, you know, from the perspective of this person I was talking to, that they were, you know, doing what they could to make this space comfortable for them. They were stopping short of fully like accepting their reality in a lot of ways, it feels like. I don't know. Does that make sense? Um, I
Yeah.
think it's better to make mistakes and really truly try to meet people where they're at than to say that's too difficult. I'm going to make too many mistakes. Uh, we're going to pull back your identity in certain regards in order to accommodate my understanding of like gender identity. Yeah, so I don't know. I just felt like we're throwing that out in the context of that last slide.
Yeah. No, that's great. Because we're hearing it and experiencing it right now where it's a doubling down on I don't want to grow. I don't want to know. I don't want to know you. Um, because that's scary to me. And I think as this is maybe just a little bit kind of rhetorical, kind of out there question, but like, what makes a person more open or not? But yeah, that the rupture and repair, like, the power being it's not, like you're saying, I think it's kind of what you're saying of it's not that you're messing up, it's how you're coming back from stuff, hopefully coming back and being like, whoa, I really messed this up. I'm really sorry. I'm with you. What do you need? And saying, and then that person can kind of, bring their reality out back from behind their back and say, it's this. Yeah. Okay, next slide. We are doing well on time. Oh, did I not? Wait a minute. I don't think I talked about this one. Oh, sorry. Go back one, Travis. Okay. So, we talked about ally being this acknowledge, listen, leverage, and yield the framework, kind of the bones of how we are never stopping learning about ourselves and other people. And the allyship being this internal gym to strengthen our empathy muscles, grounded in action, telling our truths, and doing our best to reduce harm, knowing that not causing harm is impossible, but again, how we are sharing this load as we're moving forward. Um, and we hear the word power all the time, and I just go back to its emotional and psychological agility. So the second we get comfortable of, you know, treating or telling someone else, I know you better than you know you, we've lost control of power. Um, and so some reflections when we're in spaces of how to show up, who is being affected, your intent versus your impact, and then how are you contributing and treating that person as a resource? And then what's happening inside of me that I need to take care of, managing my own stuff, to become a person that is in support. Chad?
Yeah, I got a question because I'm like a really friendly person. I don't mean to offend anybody. So if they want to be called they, them, or she, and then you see them and you say, hey, they, or, and then they're like, oh, I want to be she. So, I mean, like they change it up. So, I mean, how do I get them to understand that I'm not trying to be disrespectful? I'm trying to call them by what they want to be called, but they keep giving me different things, different weeks, or different days. So I mean, how am I supposed to come on their level and call them by what they really want to be called? I mean, I'd tell them to put a name tag on, but It's like they change the name tag every day, you know? So
Yeah.
it gives me a false identity of who they are, but it's like they don't really know who they are. And I'm dealing with a person that's like that right now, and I'm trying to be compassionate and understand and meet them where they are. I mean, I'm proud of them for staying clean and sober, but I mean, it's kind of hard to say, "Hey, how you doing today?" You know, I want to know how you're doing. And then they, you know, you go to greet them, and then all of a sudden they put up a barrier. They put up a wall just because you're trying to be friendly. And it's like everything that I'm trying to do is not working. So I don't know, like, I mean, and you apologize, and I don't want me coming to and approaching them to cause them to go back into relapse and to go back into using drugs. So how would you go about doing that?
Yeah, no, I'm so glad you asked. This is great. I see a bunch of different things happening. Emmy, thank you for your answer in there too. It is totally okay for you to start the session by saying, what names and pronouns are you feeling today? That is a way for you to acknowledge to them, I see you. I see that you are exploring and discovering a lot. Um, and acknowledge what is happening inside of you, and you nailed it. You were like, this feels like, whoa, I am on this ride and I don't know how to ground. And the work being done of um I call on the water, that you're finding a flow of like, okay, cool. Were she today? Great. And then you just like keep moving on, but it's a practice for sure. Um, does that help? Yeah. Yeah, and you could even ask yourself like, whoa, why do I feel so, and you might even notice your body like tense, or
Yeah,
your
thank you.
fear of like, I don't want to mess this up, like, and just be like, okay, I'm here, so are they, so is she. Oof. Um, and they'll feel that. She'll feel that with you. And I guess I want to say this too, as an ally, you are kind of breaking down the barriers of your own heart and saying the things that need to be said in order, that might feel counterintuitive, that like you might say to yourself, well, I'm going to cause harm. How I shouldn't ask this. But someone can really, really feel it when you're authentically saying, where are you at today? Yeah. Okay. Next slide. Here's what we're gonna. Okay, so um, one of the things I wanted, in addition to all the frameworks and kind of like, the structures and the systems, but understanding barriers from behavior systems and power. So we're going to use the bird in the cage, if you've ever come across this before. Um, sorry, Francie, which part is evident?
I was responding to Chad saying, I really care.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
because I think it is a challenge I have a lot of family in areas that are much more conservative than where I live. And that learning process and growth has been really difficult. So I appreciated very much Chad's willingness to talk about it,
Yeah.
and maybe because I think I think some of my family feels embarrassed because they get it wrong, or then they go into a refusal of willing to. They just decide to shut down and just refuse to use the correct pronouns for my son, and so it's a real like divide. And I appreciate so much how you handled it, Alex. And I appreciate Chad and Emmy both being very like forthcoming with their experiences and trying to find solutions. Thank you.
Yeah. What is the saying? Advocacy is equal parts anger and love. Um, which yeah. Sorry, I'm just gonna like chew on that too. So thank you, Chad, and thank you, everyone. This is great. I'm positively overwhelmed with how this is going. So I appreciate your honesty.
I love you, Francine. You're gonna make it. He's gonna make
Yeah.
it too. You know.
Yep. Um, okay, so I wanted to try something, break for the kind of that will kind of sum up our time together, with a few minutes at the end, but into breakout groups. Travis, you decide how many people, you in each one.
Okay, just let me know how long you want to give them, and that should do it.
Yeah. Um, so I'll write this in. Should I write it in the chat, maybe? Or
Okay. Yeah, we can go with that. And there's also a feature to share instructions into the breakout rooms as well. So we can
okay,
pivot if we need to.
okay. Um, so before y'all go into your groups, here is kind of your image, the core metaphor. So stare. I want you to get a kind good look at the bird in the cage. And if you stand inches away from the bird cage and look at a single wire, you might wonder why the bird just doesn't fly away. The single wire seems trivial. It is only when you step back and you see that an entire network of interwoven wires are preventing escape, which is the system. And when you look around the room, you realize who built the cage and holding the key to power. So, what I want you to do for, I'm trying to think. Sorry, give me a minute here. Um, let's go with have 5 minutes, and I want you to just start with focusing completely on just the bird. And you can write down or just share it in groups, things that actions you're seeing, choices, reactions, responses. And here are some examples. Maybe the bird is singing, pecking at seeds, flapping its wings against the bars. Maybe it's just sitting quietly in the bottom of the cage. Maybe it's climbing all around, um, trying to squeeze through a gap. So, again, no wrong answers. Uh, Share with each other what you are observing from that bird.
Okay, so we clear on what we're doing here, everybody. Quick thumbs up. All right, awesome. So I have your rooms ready now. It looks like about 3 people per group. It might have one group of 2. But I'm going to open the rooms now, and I have 5 minutes on the clock. That's correct, Alex?
Yes.
All right, excellent. I'll make it 6 just so folks can settle in when we do that. Here we go. All right, rooms are opening now. You should have an invitation coming your way. Lindsay, I have one arriving in a second here.
Okay, so in chat or raise your hand. So the key concept being, the behavior uh of an individual. So what were some immediate observable actions and choices that you saw the bird? Chad?
Yeah. We kind of were getting into a conversation and it reminded me of this guy. He had a dog and he had it on the cage or had it on a leash. So every day this cat would come by the yard. Well, the dog would take off running and go to the end of the leash and stop. And then one day he took the collar off the dog's leash and the cat walked by and then the dog ran and stopped right where the leash led him to. So it's like the guy didn't know why the dog was stopping. He was like, I'm letting you go. You can go on. Other dogs would come and play, but he would only go to just that certain limit and then he'd stop. So it kind of feel like that's how the bird is. I mean, I feel like that's where the girl is actually or it is where it's like she can't get out of the cage because she's already put so many walls up or fictitious like barriers. So, I'm just trying to figure out how to get the chisel and stuff and be able to break those down for her to be able to get out and be her own person. And I'm proud of her for staying clean and sober for 3 months. But I mean, she's got so much more in her that she just, I don't know. It's almost like, the power of the mind is it's a complicated thing. So
Yeah, uh, our neuroplasticity comes to mind of
yeah,
like being told we're something when we're like, whoa, I'm not. And conditioning, it's like the heart of our conditioning. Like I and it can feel, I'm imagining, and I'm also hearing kind of what you're saying too, is like, hey, you're allowed to be you. And it's like, I am. And it's a I don't want to say rough. Um it's a process. So yeah, thank you, Chad. I love all these examples that everyone's bringing. Karen, what you got?
So I was kind of talking about like because I'm a visual person. So I was really I really identify with being in a cage. Obviously because I had quite the checkered past. So like I remember what it was like to be in a cage and I remember just really detaching. So when you said, is your bird sitting at the bottom of the cage? Yes, like when I imagine my bird, its wings tucked in, really just sitting there waiting for someone to open the door. Like that's how I imagine my bird. But if I really want to think about it, and I kind of said this right at the end in our group, like cages are not just bars. Like we create all these cages based on, our perception on the world around us. So like I did not believe I would be able to be anything like what I am now because I didn't think I was smart enough, capable enough. All these things because of past failures or public opinion of me or all sorts of things. So like there's so many cages and I think like I even kind of like what you just said, like there was a really long time where I didn't even believe I could come out of these cages. Like, am I allowed to be myself? Am I allowed to be smart? Am I allowed to achieve things that I've never achieved before? Because I mean, I've never been capable of it before. And so that's probably why, when I spoke on earlier about Michelle being that one person for me to believe in me when no one else did, that's why that's influential. And I think that's why recovery coaches are so influential because we don't know. We really don't. Because, I mean, like, even if we've done it before, we don't give ourselves credit for it. I personally don't give myself enough credit for the things I do. That's been just a repeated theme in my life. So, how do we get past that?
Yeah. So are you what was um what was the bird doing for you?
Just sitting at the bottom of the cage, very
Yeah.
withdrawn, internal, like, and just like very detached. Like I remember like really just compartmentalizing, in my cage and just letting time go by, just like time wasn't even real. Like eventually whether it changed or not, like it was just like just another minute, just another day. And that was easier for me to process my cage personally. And so when I think of anyone else being in a cage, like that, even the bird, like I could just see this little bird at the bottom of the cage, all withdrawn and wings tucked, not even singing, and just waiting for someone to open the door.
Yeah. Emmy.
Yeah, I think for me, similarly, the birds sitting kind of forlorn. Somebody in my group mentioned that in the image specifically, the bird's looking away from the open door, and that was a lot of my personal experience grappling with gender identity. There were a lot of cultural influences, things that I grew up around that conditioned me to believe a very like rigid idea of gender. Um, and that was like kind of what made up my cage. I didn't realize that the door was there. And, I didn't end up transitioning into my 20s. I had kind of discussed previously with folks like there are these things that I wish I could do for myself. I wanted to wear like women's clothing. I made comments about wishing that I had been born as a woman, things like that. And most of the time that was met with like hand waving, sort of dismissiveness, not like outright cruelty, like not like, well, you're wrong for feeling that way, but just not really giving me the space to explore those feelings or ideas. And it wasn't until I started spending time around other like gender nonconforming individuals that it sort of dawned on me that like this is cage that society had imposed on me it was real. It has very real impacts on me and how I navigate the world. But also, like that small door was open, and I was able to step out of that. And a lot of these rules that I came to accept as truths were actually a lot more malleable and flexible than I had initially realized. So I think having people point out to the bird that like, hey, this door is something that we can explore. And somebody else mentioned like wanting to like chisel down walls for an individual. And I feel like for me, like the important part was chiseling down those walls myself. I had to have somebody point out that I could chisel those walls down, but like going through that process of actually getting to that door, peeking my head out, seeing how that felt. Living outside of the confines of conformity, that was like a really important process. So that's I guess how I think of that and how I felt.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I can really feel that your process love, was through love of like, I'm gonna love myself. And all of us are allowed and need to do that in in these systems that kind of can be run through shame and fear, and that all of us together in here are like, but love, joy, um and it's contagious. Okay, let's do anything else. We got just two more short sections to kind of complete this activity. um oh, go back to the cage, to the bird. Okay, so now you're gonna we'll do like maybe 4 minutes um of, so if your initial perspective, like blinking hard, and your initial image was looking at just the bird, now you're gonna take a couple steps back and look at the wires. Spacing, for examples, if you're like, well, about the cage, well, the wires are making the cage. So maybe you get focused on the spacing between the bars, um, the material that the metal is made of, um, the strength of the bar, the height of the, how big is the cage, where's the water dish, the orientation of inside the space, where's the door, um, and then notice the relative size of the bird to the cage. So all of, and again, these are just examples. So 4 minutes of whatever you are seeing, experiencing of zooming out to just the wires.
Okay, here we go. Let's proceed.
Okay. Okay. Um, okay, so what came up for y'all? What was the conversations? Lacey.
So, my first thought was, are there other birds in the cage with this bird? Is that where his friends are? Is that where he's getting connection? And I think, is there birds outside the cage? Is he going to be lonely outside the cage? And I think like people are like birds in this scenario, right? I think
Mhm.
that we're going to bond with something, and if we can't get it from other people, then we might get it from substances or whatever else we're in recovery from. So that was my first question was like, who's in there with this bird?
Did you any no, did you, any thoughts around the wires of the whole cage?
Yeah, so I just thought that I guess I wasn't thinking in terms of wires, but it just as far as like what systemic is keeping the bird in there,
Yeah.
not being able to find community.
Mhm. Mhm. Thank you. Yeah. Rebecca?
Hi. I was looking at it from literally being an owner of many, many birds. Um, I have I have 30 chickens now and 5 ducks. And we just integrated in a bunch of babies. And I was telling Francie about the situation of there is number one, there's 4 or 5 that at nighttime will not go into the structure. They choose a different structure on the outside, and we have to physically pick them up and put them in with the rest of them. It's like they want to be their own little clique outside, as opposed to the rest that all want to be a happy brother and sister family. And but then before we integrated these birds, I had 2 that would escape from the smallest hole. So I was looking at that structure like they might of, yes, I'm here and here's the wires. But if I stick my head through, I get a different perspective too. I'm not just in that structure.
So it makes me curious of like what are the wires made of?
At our property or in general?
Maybe just metaphorically of like if the cage is this so the cage is representing our systems and you're seeing it someone stick its head out, what's the what are the bars actually made of? Are
I
they
would say for me, it would be closed-minded human beings,
mm,
um, belief systems, and unwillingness to change.
Karen? Thank you, Rebecca.
So some of y'all know me, some of you don't. But if you know me at all, you realize I'm like the glitter princess of the world. And so, like, if I'm really thinking about my cage, and this is true for me, even like metaphorically as well, shh, that I can make my cage in order to tolerate my cage, I want to make it as pretty as possible. So, I was thinking about like my cage looking like very gold and sparkly. So it looks good, right? But no matter what, it is still a cage. So almost like tricking myself into thinking this is better for me.
So like are you saying like you're aware of the cage?
Yes, like I'm aware of the cage, but I feel like I don't have a choice because obviously it is a cage. So in order to tolerate being in the cage, I make it pretty so I can convince myself the cage is good for me or it's better than whatever is going on out there.
Okay. Chad?
Yeah, I couldn't help but notice the bird's tail was kind of like raised up, and the back of the cage, it looked like the door was open. So it's kind of like I was thinking, well, that bird's just crapping on whatever's outside there and don't want to go outside. And that's kind of like how the situation that I'm in right now, because like it or she, it's always just it's like negative, negative, negative. I mean, it's just crapping all over everything, and they don't really see the blessings that's outside of their own comfort zone. So I mean, I'm trying to, peel back the bars, but sometimes it's like she don't want to come out, or it don't want to come out and, see what's out here in the real world, to get a
Yeah.
job, to be, to be able to provide for himself or herself or itself. So
Yeah, let me offer this perspective. I like how you noticed the tail going up. So, how that translates for me is that if the bird were to stand upright, it the cage wouldn't fit. Like the
yeah,
bird's bigger than it's
the cage.
actually the
Yeah.
cage. And so systemically, that's kind of it representing um, none of us can actually completely destroy the cage for the
Yeah.
bird.
Or like a hen laying chicken, like I mean, that's like kind of what I thought about too, you know.
Yeah. So that we're always looking at how all these wires are connecting um, the rules that are in place, the structures, what is creating a norm for the
Yeah.
bird. Um, I feel like someone else had their hand up. No? Anything else? Okay, I'm gonna take every minute we got. Last bit, you ready? Okay. Now we're acknowledging the bird is in a cage. Bird exists, cage is there. Taking a couple more steps back and close your eyes if you need to. Now we're looking at the room. Who constructed it? How are the walls built? Who manages the room? Um, so I'll go ahead and give you kind of hand you this. So this representing power, how systems of power are operating. Who bought the cage? Who holds the key? Who determines the feeding schedules? Who decides if the bird stays in or out? Who sets up the rooms? The rule. When do the lights go out? When do they go on? Um, we'll take 3 minutes, Travis. We're gonna have a part two, y'all.
All right, that's everybody.
That's everybody. Okay. I know we're a little past time. I just want to honor and say thank you. Just we'll wrap this up for your time and your energy and your hearts. What are some things anybody want to share of what the group talked about in terms of uncovering the room? Aaron.
So I was kind of talking about how, you kind of pose the question, who controls the environment around the cage, who controls the feeding schedule, all that stuff. Well, honestly, it's whoever I give power to at any given time in my life. And it's like a choice who I give power to, whether I believe that or not. And it fluctuates. Like, sure, it can be the government. Sure, it can be my parole officer. Sure, it can be my boss who gives me my paycheck so I can eat, or it can be a man. Like in the past, I have struggled with men, giving men my power in relationships. So, I am in a really great time in my life now where I'm finding my own power. So, but that is still, ongoing. That is an ongoing adventure. And I think it will be for the rest of my life. So,
Yeah, thank you. Well, as I mentioned in the beginning, y'all will get these slides. And I also wrote, which we didn't get to, but that's totally fine. I wrote three scenarios that you'll see at the end of the slide presentation, kind of like um, that you all have seen as recovery coaches. Here's this situation. How would you respond? And then also my contact information. Because I'm on this journey with you, and I cannot thank you enough for showing up. That is literally the first step of being like, I'm here, and I want to do this human thing that we're doing all together. So I'll hang out. Thank you.
Welcome.
I'll hang out for a few more minutes if you want to hang back.